those harnesses. You remember there was only a bit like something out of Thunderbirds. Then we were...
Was that for the floating scenes?
Yes, lifted up. I remember a funny moment one day, one of the guys tripped up and demolished a little bit of the Moonbase, which was fiberglass, I think, wasn't it? That was quite funny. But before I was a Cyberman, I was an Egyptian warrior, throwing spears at the Daleks. So I've been around a bit.
Cybermen and Daleks.
But it was good fun for a while. Very hot, obviously wearing, you know, you wore a t-shirt underneath, that was usually soaked after a little while. And going to the toilet wasn't that easy.
And Patrick was saying that he's into hostess singing, but you have another career as well.
Well, I went on to make records with EMI in Columbia in 1968 and did TV as a singer. So I've sort of carried on that around the world over the years in the singing of the records. I didn't have a hit, but I did quite well with that.
And I think you're coming to Daleks Newcastle convention this year for the Saturday night entertainment.
Rocking and rolling, yeah.
And Michael, you were in the next story along there, which is Tomb of the Cybermen, and you've, I think, sorry David, but I think Michael has the top seniority in the cyber.
Yes, certainly. Yeah.
No fighting.
Mr. Banks was only the cyber leader. That's right. I was the cyber controller. Just remember that. Yes, what I remember about it is that Pat Troughton, certainly my favourite Doctor.
Yeah.
Wonderful voice. And in fact, I wrote a radio play a couple of years later. He played the lead. I was so anxious to have that voice in my play. Also, he didn't try so hard to be lovable. He was slightly sinister. You know, you always felt with his Doctor that he could turn quite nasty, quite subtly if you weren't careful. So he was more nuanced, I thought. But the one story I'd like to tell about the cyber controller is that my agent, we came to talk money, and the Zero BBC used to do a thing called a special loan. We suffered from special loans, which meant that if you'd done a bit of telly, your fee would gradually rise up a bit, and you had a substantive level. And then every now and then, if it was something very small or insignificant, or children's television, you would be offered a special loan, which meant that your fee would drop, but it wasn't. The next time you worked for the BBC, you'd be back to your substantive level. So you'd have. I never heard of any actor giving a special high. So I had one. Did you really?
Yes, I had a special high.
Oh, good heavens.
Which meant that they weren't going to. That's the only time they were going to pay me that much.
Never again. But the thing about this was my agent said to me, oh, they're offering you a special loan. I said, why? He said, well, they say you don't have to say the lines. Because at that time the technology wasn't up to having a microphone underneath the costume. So it was Peter Hawkins with a microphone standing by the camera and saying the lines for you. So I said, no, I don't have to say the lines, it's perfectly true. But I have to learn them, because I have this mouth thing, you see, which is on a chin, like a letterbox. And so you had to open it, and then wait for Peter Hawkins to say the line, and then shut it again. So you had to know the line. Even if it was, but you know the BBC, they paid up. They accepted that, and I was back on my substantive level.
And all this yellow stuff came out.
Oh, yes.
We used to call it death by custard.
Yeah, the thing about being in those, like the other thing, the robot that I did in the Ogron, the problem is when your face is concealed, you disappear as a human being. And you know, we're talking about being hot, and you just get left alone and ignored, and it can be very unpleasant. And when I was killed as a cyber controller, which I was electrocuted and crashed to the floor, covered in cuts and bruises, the lights all went out in the studio because it was 4 o'clock or 4:15, which was the electricians' union time for the tea break. And so all the lights went out, everybody went, leaving me on the floor. I had to shout for help. for somebody to come and get me up and get that on there. So I could have a cup of tea, as well as all the electricians. So it wasn't an easy costume. We were bolted in, the hands were bolted on, whereas when I did it with Colin Baker sometime later, you could take your own head off and you could take your own hands off. The costume got not easier, but they lost that. Because I caused a slightly embarrassing frisson, I think, at some rehearsal when I realised, I think we'd seen the costumes, we'd seen the designs, and I realised this rather eerie effect had disappeared, and when I mentioned it, there was a nasty silence, because the designer had changed, I suppose, and nobody had realised this, and it was, I sort of embarrassed everybody by raising it, so you was never seen again.
Having not got to speak in the original TV version, you've recently done a book reading of the
Yeah.
novel, which you played everybody,
Yes.
apart from your own part.
I didn't, yes,
You still don't get your own lines.
that's right, yeah. Well, it was...
One has to remember that these costumes were made by the wonderful BBC costume department, which was famous. And then, of course, dear Margaret Thatcher came along and destroyed the BBC, and so the BBC no longer have such a wonderful costume department and wonderful designers.